Your mind is not weak because you feel fear. It is weak because you spend your life running from it. Every thought you avoid does not disappear. It descends, and what descends into the unseen does not rest. It waits. It waits in your body, in your posture, in your breath, in the tension of your jaw, and the fatigue behind your eyes. You believe strength means control, calmness, clarity. But psychological strength begins much earlier, at the moment you stop fleeing from what you are silently obeying. Most people believe their thoughts are their own. They believe they decide what they feel, what they want, who they are. This is an illusion carefully maintained by the conscious mind to preserve its sense of authority. Beneath this thin layer of awareness lives a far older intelligence. It does not speak in language. It speaks in impulses, dreams, compulsions, bodily sensations, and sudden emotions that arrive without explanation. This is the unconscious, and it is not gentle with those who ignore it. Your mind becomes fragile when your conscious identity is built on denial. When you tell yourself you are calm while your body is braced for attack. When you claim indifference while your nervous system remains vigilant. When you say you have moved on while your muscles still remember the impact. Psychological weakness is not a lack of will. It is the cost of internal dishonesty. From childhood, you were taught which emotions were acceptable. Anger was dangerous. Fear was shameful. Sadness was inconvenient. So you learned to suppress. But suppression is not elimination. It is burial. And the buried does not die. It ferments. It becomes distorted. It returns as anxiety without cause, exhaustion without labor, emptiness without explanation. The unconscious does not punish you out of cruelty. It compensates. If you refuse to feel consciously, it forces you to feel unconsciously. If you refuse to confront fear voluntarily, it will ambush you through panic. If you refuse to grieve intentionally, it will drain your vitality slowly. Your mind grows strong only when it becomes honest with its own depths. The first step toward psychological strength is not confidence. It is tolerance, the capacity to remain present with discomfort without attempting to escape it. This is not a moral act. It is physiological. When fear arises, your body prepares for survival. The heart accelerates, the muscles contract, the breath becomes shallow. If you resist this response, you amplify it. If you observe it, something changes. The nervous system begins to learn that fear can be endured without catastrophe. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is the absence of avoidance. There is a part of you you have been taught to despise. It contains your rage, your jealousy, your selfishness, your hunger for power, your capacity for cruelty, your unspoken fantasies. You learned early that to belong, you must disown this part. So you split yourself. You kept what was praised and exiled what was condemned. This exiled part did not vanish. It became the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is primitive. It is unrefined. It is human, and it is dangerous only when it is unconscious. What you do not admit in yourself, you will encounter as fate. What you deny within, you will project onto others. The people who provoke you most intensely are mirrors of disowned traits. Your mind becomes weak when it fights enemies that live inside its own structure. To make the mind strong, one must retrieve the shadow, not to act it out, but to integrate it. This requires courage of a rare kind. Not the courage to dominate others, but the courage to see oneself without distortion. You must acknowledge your capacity for destruction, manipulation, and resentment without justifying or indulging it. This is not self-hatred, it is self-knowledge. When you deny your aggression, it turns inward and becomes depression. When you deny your desire for control, it emerges as passive resentment. When you deny your envy, it becomes chronic dissatisfaction. The shadow does not disappear when ignored. It becomes symptomatic. Psychological strength emerges when you stop pretending you are only what you approve of. When you recognize that the same force that allows you to protect, assert, and endure is the force that can harm. The difference lies in consciousness. An integrated shadow gives you boundaries. A repressed shadow gives you explosions. Most people fear this inner confrontation because they believe acknowledging darkness means becoming it. This is false. Unconscious darkness governs behavior. Conscious darkness becomes choice, and choice is the foundation of strength. Your body is not merely a vehicle for the mind, it is the archive of your unresolved experiences. Every trauma you did not have the capacity to process at the time was stored somatically, not as a memory but as a pattern, a tightening, a collapse, a numbness. The mind forgets, the body does not. You carry your history in the way you breathe, in the tension of your shoulders, in the way your stomach reacts before your thoughts can form. This is why intellectual understanding alone does not heal. You can explain your pain endlessly and still remain bound to it. Because trauma is not held in narrative, it is held in sensation. Psychological weakness often appears as chronic vigilance. The body remains in survival mode long after the threat has passed. This drains energy, it shortens patience, it narrows perception. A mind trapped in survival cannot access depth, meaning, or creativity. It can only react. Strength begins when you allow the body to complete what it was once forced to interrupt. This may come as shaking, tears, exhaustion, or sudden emotional waves that feel disproportionate. They are not disproportionate, they are delayed. Most people numb these sensations with distraction, endless stimulation, noise, consumption, movement without rest. They confuse productivity with vitality. But a nervous system that never discharges remains trapped. To build psychological strength, you must become intimate with your bodily responses, not to control them, but to listen. The body does not speak in words, but it speaks truth. If you learn to remain present with sensation without immediate interpretation, something profound occurs. The frozen energy begins to move, and movement restores agency. A strong mind is not disconnected from the body, it is anchored in it. Fear is not your enemy, it is your most honest teacher. Fear reveals where your identity is fragile, where your self-image depends on certainty, approval, or control. When fear arises, it signals a boundary of the known. Most people retreat at this boundary. They call it anxiety, they pathologize it, they medicate it, they avoid it. But fear is not asking to be eliminated, it is asking to be understood. The mind becomes strong when it learns to distinguish between real danger and symbolic threat. Many fears are not about survival, but about ego dissolution, the fear of being seen, the fear of failing, the fear of being insignificant, the fear of losing identity. These fears feel lethal because the psyche equates identity with existence. Avoidance reinforces fear. Every time you retreat, the unconscious records confirmation. This was too much. Over time, your world inks. Your mind becomes brittle, overprotected, easily overwhelmed. Strength is built through gradual exposure, not reckless confrontation, but deliberate presence. You allow fear to arise without obeying it. You observe its sensations. You notice how it peaks and subsides. You learn that fear is a wave, not a command. This process rewires the nervous system. The body learns safety through experience, not reassurance. Each time you remain, you reclaim territory. Each time you flee, you surrender it. But fear also guards meaning. Behind what terrifies you, most often lies what matters most. The mind resists growth because growth demands sacrifice of old identities, illusions, and attachments. Fear signals the cost of transformation. A strong mind does not eradicate fear, it consults it. The final obstacle to psychological strength is the refusal to accept inner conflict. You want harmony without tension, clarity without ambiguity, peace without sacrifice. This desire weakens you because it is incompatible with reality. The psyche is not a unified system. It is a dynamic field of opposing forces, instinct and morality, desire and restraint, belonging and individuation. To be psychologically strong is not to resolve these tensions, but to contain them without collapse. Most people choose a side. They identify with one aspect of themselves and demonize the other. This creates rigidity. Rigidity breaks under pressure. Strength is the capacity to hold contradiction without PR. Immature resolution. To say, I am capable of love and hatred. I seek connection and solitude. I desire meaning and fear responsibility. Bar. These are not flaws. Br, they are conditions of consciousness. When you stop demanding a simplified self, you become resilient. Bar, your identity becomes flexible rather than brittle. You are less reactive because fewer things threaten your sense of who you are. Bar, meaning does not arise from comfort. It arises from engagement with what is difficult and true. Bar, a strong mind is oriented toward meaning, not pleasure. B, pleasure numbs. Meaning organizes. Bar. When your life is aligned with meaning, suffering becomes bearable. Bar, not pleasant, but intelligible. And what is intelligible can be endured. But mind becomes strong not by adding layers, but by shedding illusions, not by becoming invulnerable, but by becoming honest. Br, not by controlling life, but by meeting it fully. When you stop fleeing your inner world, it stops chasing you. When you listen to what has been silenced, it softens. When you accept your depth, you gain gravity. And gravity is what allows you to stand quietly, firmly, within yourself. You were taught to believe that the darker parts of you must be eliminated in order for you to be good. Bar, this was never true. What was required was not elimination, but relationship. Yet no one taught you how to relate to what frightened them in themselves. So they taught you to amputate instead. And an amputated psyche bleeds internally. Bar, the shadow does not announce itself politely. It appears in moments when control weakens, fatigue, intoxication, stress, intimacy, anger. It leaks through sarcasm, passive aggression, sudden cruelty, or secret fantasies that disturb you precisely because they feel alive. You tell yourself, this is not who I am. But the psyche does not recognize such declarations. It only recognizes what is acknowledged and what is denied. What you deny does not stay neutral. It becomes autonomous. The shadow, when unconscious, develops its own will. It influences decisions behind the scenes, shaping your relationships, your self-sabotage, your moral rigidity, and your secret resentments. You believe you are choosing freely, yet much of your behavior is compensation for what you refuse to see. Psychological weakness often masquerades as virtue. Excessive niceness, chronic self-sacrifice, moral superiority, rigid principles. These can all be defenses against shadow material. If you never allow yourself to feel anger, it does not mean you are peaceful. It means your anger has gone underground, where it will emerge distorted and untamed. If you deny your desire for power, it will express itself through manipulation rather than directness. If you deny your envy, it will turn into contempt. The shadow grows strongest in those who believe they have none. To integrate the shadow is not to indulge it. It is to remove its secrecy. Secrecy is what gives it power. The moment you can say inwardly, yes, this capacity exists in me, something shifts. The energy bound in repression is released into consciousness. You gain choice. Before integration, the shadow acts through you. After integration, you act with awareness of it. This process is deeply unsettling because it dismantles the moral narrative you have constructed to feel safe. You prefer to see yourself as consistent, predictable, good. But the psyche is not consistent. It is layered, contradictory, and shaped by forces older than your conscious values. Strength comes when your identity can survive this realization without fragmentation. Many people attempt to bypass shadow integration by adopting spiritual language or intellectual ideals. They speak of light, transcendence, positivity, rationality. These can become sophisticated avoidance strategies. The shadow does not respond to ideals. It responds to attention. Attention is what transforms instinct into insight. When you begin to observe your reactions rather than justify them, the shadow reveals itself. Notice what irritates you disproportionately. Notice whom you judge harshly. Notice what disgusts you, what fascinates you, what you secretly admire but publicly condemn. These are not random. They are psychic signals pointing to disowned parts of yourself. The mind becomes strong not by purifying itself, but by widening its capacity to contain. Containment is a psychological function. It means allowing conflicting impulses to exist without acting them out or suppressing them blindly. It requires a nervous system capable of tolerating internal tension. This is why shadow work is not merely intellectual. It is embodied. When you acknowledge a forbidden impulse, the body reacts. Heat, tightness, shame, fear. If you immediately shut this down, the shadow retreats. If you remain present without judgment or indulgence, integration begins. The shadow is not asking for permission. It is asking for recognition. Without this recognition, the shadow seeks expression through projection. You see your own disowned aggression in others and label them dangerous. You see your own selfishness in others and call them immoral. You see your own weakness in others and despise them. Thus, the world becomes populated with enemies that are, in truth, fragments of your own psyche. This constant projection exhausts the mind. It keeps you in a state of vigilance and moral outrage. Psychological strength requires withdrawing projections. This does not mean excusing harmful behavior in others. It means recognizing why it affects you the way it does. When you retrieve your projections, the world becomes less hostile, not safer, but clearer. Clarity is strength. The integrated shadow also restores vitality. Much of your energy is spent maintaining repression. When this energy is released, you feel more grounded, more assertive, more alive, not euphoric, alive in a sober, embodied way. You begin to set boundaries not out of fear, but out of self-respect. You speak more directly because you are no longer afraid of your own aggression. You can say no without guilt because you are no longer trying to be unrealistically pure. This is the paradox. The more honest you become about your darkness, the less destructive it is. The more you deny it, the more eruse it becomes. But shadow integration also confronts you with grief. Grief for the self you could not be, for the impulses you had to suppress to survive, for the authenticity you sacrificed for acceptance. This grief is unavoidable. It is the price of psychological maturity. Many people avoid this grief by clinging to their constructed persona, the mask shaped by expectations. The persona is necessary, but when over-identified with, it becomes a prison. You live outwardly successful, inwardly estranged. Your mind appears functional but feels hollow. Strength is not the absence of inner conflict. It is the capacity to live with it consciously. The shadow also contains creative potential. Your spontaneity, intensity, imagination, and courage often reside there. When reclaimed, these qualities no longer erupt chaotically. They become available for conscious use. This is why psychologically strong individuals often appear calm but formidable. They are not fragile. They have faced what they are capable of. They do not need to prove goodness because they know their full range. The goal is not moral perfection. It is psychological wholeness. Wholeness does not make you comfortable. It makes you real. And only what is real can endure sustained pressure without collapsing. You will search for strength by trying to silence what hurts you. This is the final illusion you must abandon. The mind does not become strong by closing itself. It becomes strong by becoming spacious. To hold what once threatened to tear it apart. Everything you have avoided has shaped you more than anything you have chosen. The words you never said hardened into tension. The grief you postponed settled into your posture. The fear you refused to feel organized your entire life around safety rather than truth. None of this makes you broken. It makes you human. Psychological strength is not a destination. It is a relationship with reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. A reality where pain is not optional, but meaning is. Where fear does not disappear, but loses its authority. Where the unconscious does not vanish, but becomes a collaborator rather than a saboteur. When you stop demanding that your inner world be quiet, it begins to speak clearly. When you stop punishing yourself for what you feel, feeling stops ruling you. When you stop pretending to be whole, wholeness slowly emerges. A strong mind is not constantly confident. It is not endlessly calm. It does not feel invincible. It feels rooted in the body, rooted in truth, rooted in the knowledge that you can survive your own depths. You will never outrun your shadow. You will never think your way out of fear. You will never distract yourself into peace. But you can stand still long enough to see what has been chasing you. And when you do, you will discover it was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to be seen. There is a quiet strength that emerges when you no longer need to lie to yourself. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It simply remains when everything superficial falls away. This strength does not make life easier. It makes it honest. And honesty, though heavy, is stable. What is stable can bear weight. What can bear weight does not collapse under pressure. In the end, psychological strength is not about becoming someone new. It is about reclaiming what was split off so you could survive. It is about standing inside yourself without flinching. It is about allowing the mind to be deep rather than defended. And when you can do that, when you no longer need to escape your inner world, you will notice something subtle and irreversible. Life no longer feels like something you must endure. It feels like something you are finally capable of meeting.